I only tell stories, Your Grace. They may be truths, they may be fictions. All I know is that the stories themselves exist, and that I must tell them. Hoyd, Warbreaker. So, we all have a favorite story or series. They entice us with a world of fantasy, draw us in with unique magic or technology, and hook us with relatable characters that have to face challenges and hopefully grow because of them. That's exactly what the Cosmere has been for me. Now you're probably asking yourself, what in the world is the Cosmere? And my cheeky response is, oh, it's not a world, it is worlds. An entire galaxy with multiple solar systems, with planets and their own unique and quirky magic, all created by a single author, Brandon Sanderson. But that just doesn't do all his work justice. Tackling the Cosmere is no easy task. As of this recording, Sanderson has written 16 books and 5 novellas that tie into this interconnected universe. There are 4 main series, with Stormlight Archive alone ranging from nearly 1,004 to 1,400 pages per book. That's close to 6,000 pages just for one series, and it's only halfway done. So for the average reader, that might feel a little intimidating. But just like the analogy of eating an elephant, we start with it with one piece at a time. One book and one series at a time. So let us start where all things begin, at the beginning. For us, in our universe, we call it the Big Bang. But for the Cosmere, it is called the Shattering. In the beginning, there was nothing but a single thought, and from that thought, a universe was born. The god of the Cosmere was Adonalsium. He ruled over the Cosmere, but not much is known. But what we do know is a rebellion formed against Adonalsium, and a group of people were able to kill Adonalsium, fracturing and shattering his power into 16 shards. These shards are referred to as the Shards of Creation. Each shard was taken up by one of the rebels, except for one, who just absolutely refused to take up one of the shards. Each shard spread across the Cosmere, and they had their own world or /domain /system. Each shard contains an aspect of Adonalsium, and therefore its own unique power. Their power we will be calling investiture. All throughout the Cosmere, each shard has a unique characteristic, an ideal that they uphold, and thus the way their power is formed and is used is different. But the underlying principle is the same. The power gets invested into something or into someone. Now, the Cosmere is also broken up into 3 realms. There are many systems, some yet to be discovered, but travel is possible between the systems by navigating through the realms. The 3 realms are the physical realm, the cognitive realm, and the spiritual realm. Now, the physical realm is the real world that we live in. It's the realm that we're used to, it's where we're born, it's where everything takes place. Now, the cognitive realm and the spiritual realm, they're a little different. The cognitive realm is the realm of thought, and the spiritual realm is, well, the realm of spirits. So in these stories, you may encounter characters that you have seen in another series. These people are going to be referred to as world hoppers, and they are able to travel to other worlds through navigating the cognitive realm. Now, right now I'm not going to go into too much detail about how these mechanics work, just because that's a lot to chew off. But there will be other videos where we will dive into these things, along with some greater theories, ideologies, and philosophies of the Cosmere. But our first stop on our trip to the Cosmere will be to the Cellish system, to the planet of Cell, and thus into the book of Elantris. One cannot separate truth from actions. Physically inevitable or not, truth stands above all things. It is independent of who has the best army, who can deliver the longest sermons, or even who has the most priests. It can be pushed down, but it will always surface. Truth is the one thing you can never intimidate. Elantris is the first story that Brandon Sanderson wrote and was able to publish in the Cosmere. Now, Elantris takes place on the planet Sel. Sel has two shards of creation, devotion and dominion. Now, the story centers on a young prince named Raoden, who is engaged to Princess Serene. Their union was meant to solidify an alliance between the two kingdoms in preparation for a looming threat from a militaristic empire. But one fateful morning, Raoden awoke to find himself struck by the Shaod. Now, the Shaod was once viewed as a blessing, making mortals essentially demigods, but now it was a curse. Raoden was essentially turned into a zombie, but not the lust after your brains kind of zombie, but the kind where your body essentially just doesn't heal. When cursed by the Shaod, the individual's bodies cannot heal from wounds, which also causes hair falling out and patches of black skin to appear. Now, the people who are cursed are thrown into the city of Elantris. Elantris was once a shiny beacon filled with demigods who could access and use the magic of AonDor. Raoden's journey is one of hope, leadership, and rediscovery, as he strives to unite the broken people of Elantris and uncover what caused the fall of its once great magic. Meanwhile, through Princess Serene's eyes, we see political maneuvering outside the city walls, and we see the larger world of Sel begin to shift. Now, there are three types of magic in Elantris. Now, the magic the Elantrians use is, I already referred to it as AonDor. It is a writing/pictograph kind of system where they write symbols in the air called aeons, then having been turned into Elantrians, it grants them access to the door. Now, there are Aeon equations, and these are used to channel the door in a more specific way. With it, Elantrians could fabricate any object out of Aeon, and has a secondary effect that can be used in the Aeon equation. Almost any effect in the Cosmere can be replicated with the right equation. So, theoretically, with AonDor, you could actually get access to Allomancy, to surge binding, if you're able to write the correct equation. So that's what really makes this magic system very interesting to me. Now, there are two other forms of magic. One is called Che Shan. It is a combat meditation practiced by those from Jindo. Users channel the door through rhythmic dance movements, entering into a state of battle awareness that enhances their physical prowess. But the art is spiritual too, requiring a deep focus and devotion to master. So essentially with the Aeons, you're practicing the writing style, whereas with Che Shan, you're more able to have your body be the connecting force to Door. And lastly, there is Dakor. Now, the exact mechanics of this one is still unknown, but its practitioners, often monks, undergo a terrifying mutation in exchange for immense power. Now, this one will be explored further in the planned Elantris sequel, so that's something that I am really looking forward to finding out more about. Now, personally, I believe that Door is devotion's power. So because again, if you look at the arts here, with steady devotion to the art, whether it's Aeons or Che Shan, and the more you learn about those specific arts, you're able to tap into more of its power and be able to access more of its abilities. Because whether it be through AonDor or Che Shan, since it is using the door, it will always require an amount of devotion to the art itself. So that is why I firmly believe that the door is essentially, that's why I believe Door is devotion's power. Now, Elantris is around 640 pages in length. It is a good start if you're wanting to ease your way into the Cosmere, with right now just a one-off story. There are a couple of short stories that take place on Sel, like The Emperor's Soul and The Hope of Elantris. If you want a series that is more on the darker end, more nitty gritty, and with a lot more complex magic system, then let us journey over to the Scadrian system. From the adaptations, both forced and unforced, of the humans living on her, to the vast transformations of landscapes during her different eras, Scadrial remains my favorite planet for scholarly study in the Cosmere. The interactions of her magics with natural physics are multitude, varied, and fascinating. From Chris's essay on the Scadrian system. Scadrial is the planet where Mistborn takes place. Now, Mistborn is going to be broken up into 3 different eras. Era 1 is the classic fantasy era, Era 2 is turn of the century, and Era 3 is going to be the modern era. Now, each era has a unique story that builds from the last, telling stories of legendary heroes. And these heroes, now stuff of legends, didn't start as such. They started off as thieves and urchins. In the first Mistborn trilogy, we follow Vin, an urchin girl who is taken in by Kelsier. Kelsier sees and discovers that Vin is a Mistborn like himself. Mistborns are sort of like the Avatar, but for metal magic, which in this world is called Allomancy. Now, each metal and its alloy in Allomancy has an ability. Like, for example, iron mistings can pull on metal objects, and steel mistings can push on metal objects. Or zinc mistings, known as rioters, inflame emotions, and brass mistings, known as soothers, can soothe emotions, calming them. Now, Mistborns have access to all 16 metal abilities. It is through Vin's eyes we are introduced to the cold and brutal world of Scadrial, with its ash mounts and their oppressive, immortal emperor ruling over the world, locking it in a state of perpetual stagnation. Kelsier takes Vin and introduces her to his thieving crew, and then informs the crew that they are going to attempt to kill the Lord Ruler. Now, as the series goes on, you are introduced to a series of different types of creatures and learn about the 2 other magic systems that are on Scadrial. First one we briefly talked about is Allomancy. Allomancy is what's called as an end-positive form of investiture, meaning that the power comes from an external source. So very much think of it like gas in your car or food for our bodies. When an Allomancer ingests and burns metal, that metal acts as a conduit, connecting it to the shard of preservation. And then the Allomancer is granted the ability corresponding with that metal, allowing each metal to focus preservation's power to the Allomancer. Now, there are 16 types of Allomancer. Each metal misting has a unique name and power. And with that, here's the chart so you can take a look at it. But essentially, we have coin shots, lurchers, rioters, soothers, pewter thugs, tin eyes, smokers, seekers. Then we get into some of the more obscure ones, like duralmin gnats, aluminium gnats, nicrobursts, leechers, augurs, oracles, pulsars, and sliders. Now, if you want to know specifically what they do, again, go ahead, pause the video, and look at the table, just because there is so much that goes into this. But with all these different kinds of metals, all the unique powers that they have, and the way they get implemented, and how people can just interact with all of it, is truly what makes Mistborn so much fun to read and be a part of the world. Now, this is just one of the 3 magic systems in Mistborn. Now, after Vin is introduced to the crew, she is given a role that she's going to be infiltrating upper society. So she is then given kind of a teacher. She is introduced to Sazed, a Terrace eunuch who teaches her about every different type of religion and how it relates to the prophecy about the hero of ages. Now, Sazed then tells her about their ability called Feruchemy. Now, Feruchemy is an end-neutral manifestation of investiture. It allows the user to convert certain attributes into investiture and store them in metal mines. As long as they are in physical contact of that metal, they can continue to store those attributes and then later retrieve those attributes from the metal. So think more of Feruchemy like a bank. You are going to be able to store your specific physical attributes into it to then recall them later. Like, for example, an iron feruchemist can store their weight. So while they are storing their weight, they walk around lighter. Then later they can tap into that metal mine to make themselves way heavier. And so just like in Allomancy, feruchemist types, there are 16 types of feruchemists, and each also has their own unique name and their own unique properties on how they are able to store their physical traits. So we already talked about iron skimmers storing their weight. There's also steel runners, zinc sparkers, brass is known as fire souls. Then we have wind whisperers, pewter brutes, archivists, sentries, spinners, soul bearers, gaspers, submers, true self, connectors, blood makers, and pinnacle. So again, here's the chart for those ones as well. And each one of them also very unique, very different, and very cool. And Sazed himself, he is a true feruchemist, where just as the Mistborn is able to access all 16 metals, a true feruchemist can access all 16 metal mines. So you kind of have your yin and yang in that regard, but of these more positive forms of investiture. Whereas the last of the three metal arts is known as the most sinister, which is Hemalurgy. Now, in the story of Mistborn, before Vin meets Kelsier, she is part of a different thieving crew, a small-time gang just trying to survive. They are trying to get some money and they run into a Steel Inquisitor, an agent for the Lord Ruler. They are described as tall, muscular men with shaved heads and intricate tattoos, and, quote from the book, thick metal spikes that have been pounded tip first through each of the man's eyes, with shafts as wide as an eye socket, that their sharp points jutted out about an inch from the back of the man's clean-shaven skull. The flat spike ends shone like two silvery discs sticking out of the sockets in the front where eyes should have been. These metal spikes are hemalurgic spikes. Each spike can grant an allomantic or feruchemical ability. Now, hemalurgy is an end-negative form of investiture, meaning that some of its power and potency is lost on its creation. Essentially, these spikes pierce through the spirit, then when the spike is impelled into someone else, that other person can use that investiture. It is an end-negative because the spike will lose its strength outside the body. That, though, is just one part of hemalurgy, though. As I said, there are monsters and creatures unique to Mistborn. These are hemalurgic constructs. The Steel Inquisitors are technically a hemalurgic construct, but there are more, like Mistwraiths, Koloss, and Kandras. Now, Mistwraiths appear to be more like amorphous blobs, capable of absorbing bones and tissue of other creatures to gain shape. They do not possess sentience, however. Their shapes are random and mix of many different species into one. They are very much like pure animal instincts of just like, think of like the gelatinous blob from Dungeons and Dragons. It's essentially that, but they take on more just random like human animal shapes. Now, Kandras are former Mistwraiths. Mistwraiths given sapience, so to speak, by two spikes. So Mistwraiths only have one spike in them, whereas Kandras will have two spikes. Now, both charged with the same human attribute. To keep the Kandra, this is known as a blessing. It is possible for the Kandras to gain sapience only with one spike, although their behavior will be more erratic as a result. Now, what really makes the Kandra interesting is that they are essentially shapeshifters. Through the bones that they are able to ingest, they can then take on the shape of that individual, of that creature. So, like if a Kandra took in wolf bones, they are able to transform themselves into a wolf that can talk. They can talk, and they are also known as the Great Contractors. Essentially, if you want a lawyer in this world, go to a Kandra. They know everything about contracts because that is their relationship with the Lord Ruler. Now, the last of the hemalurgic constructs are the Koloss. Now, Koloss are brutes. They are brutish, monstrous beings created with 4 iron spikes, each charged with human strength. Now, they lose their intelligence, but they gain immense strength, and they will continue to grow until they die. Essentially, think of the Koloss as like giants. They continue to grow, but they were humans. They're humans that essentially got impelled with spikes. With these spikes, that's what gave them the strength, but they will lose their intelligence as they continue to grow. But they are strong, formidable, like giant, again, think of them like giants or trolls. That's essentially what the Koloss are. As you can tell, the world of Mistborn is very unique. The stories, the magic system, and the characters are truly what make the series shine. When you get to the second era, the world changes as it enters into an industrial revolution, where the magic system is becoming the science. In Era 2, you'll follow a lawman named Waxilium and his deputy, Wayne. These two work together to solve crimes and hunt down lawbreakers. It is essentially like the Wild Wild West meets Sherlock Holmes. I hope that this video has at least piqued your curiosity. I want to encourage those to go check out these series such as Elantris and Mistborn. And hopefully, as you guys read through these series, you guys can also really see how amazing these worlds, these magic systems, how just overall awesome they are. And I want to continue this video series. And in the next video, I'm going to be talking about the worlds of Nalthis and Roshar. If you want to be alerted when the video goes live, hit that subscribe button and hit the little bell to be notified. So until next time, World Hoppers, I will see you in the next video.